People, and when I say people, I'm referring to fellow Fallout fans, often cite Mothership Zeta as possibly the worst made Fallout DLC ever. While the existing meta may be to hate on the concurrent games, Fallout 4 and 76, and their literal theme park, themed content scheme. When I became a Fallout fan, back in my day, the answer was clear. Mothership Zeta was bad, and you're bad if you enjoy it. But, what if I told you this piece of mid-2000s media is simply, well, mid? You probably wouldn't be too surprised. Not as surprised as I was when I found myself drawn to playing this DLC. While I've mostly been focusing on New Vegas' add-on content and playing each of those for the first time, I in fact have never focused on Fallout 3's side content either. While I'm not the biggest fan of the third game, mostly in relation to its broader story, I've always appreciated aspects of the game and its overall vibe. It also has some pretty great concepts, like Harold's story concluding in a very emotional way, or the Gary experiments. At any rate, we load in, do the Vault 101 stuff, get to Megaton, bonk the sheriff, and explode the bomb. I just needed the early XP. I don't know. Grinding my way over to the starting zone, all the way across the map, would be a slog if I hadn't done it this way. My god, indeed. So, taking care of that preliminary nonsense, we head off and, through our Pip-Boy, track a mysterious radio signal picked up upon our earlier exit from the vault. The transmission leads us through basically what amounts to the Badlands of the Capital Wasteland, and we arrive here, at this otherworldly and apparently damaged spacecraft. The little idiot alien who wrecked it appears dead, or at least incapacitated near the ship's front hull. We don't get the time to investigate his status thoroughly, or really anything about the scene at all, as we are immediately sucked into a glowing and ominous beam of blue light. We soon black out, the screen transitioning to a brief yet pretty effective communication of what's happening. Yep, they're putting it right in there. Jesus Christ. We black out again, coming to in a sealed and cramped holding cell. A woman and fellow wastelander who only goes by the name Soma is our current roommate. She explains very little of what's going on, setting the stage for the confusion plaguing a lot of this DLC. Like when we hear the aliens coming, or at least Soma does? I don't know. I must have missed them. And tells us to get against the wall with her. The aliens, I guess, pass us by, heading into an unseen cell and doing God knows what to some unseen human inhabitant. Soma confirms this and gives us a sign the coast is clear, telling us in no uncertain terms that whatever the man's fate in the adjoining cell was, will likely be our own if we don't figure a way out of here soon. So, in the spirit of our entrapment, she proposes a good old-fashioned two-man prison riot. Basically, this lady and I will pummel each other until the aliens, sick of our horsing around, will run in and I guess put a stop to it, at which point we'll jump them and make our escape. She doesn't have a plan after that. Also, it really isn't expanded upon or even discussed at any point exactly what the aliens were doing to me back there on the table, so I kind of have to assume they already have done some awful things to us. Of course, it isn't really an added story element like the whole brainless perk deal in Old World Blues. I don't know if Bethesda just forgot they rendered that whole intro, but I'm gonna take it personally still. We escape, my level's still pretty low, and as a result my health sustains a not too insignificant amount of damage early on, from both the Soma fight and these annoying yet highly effective alien stun batons. We win the brawl, allowing Soma to do most of the work and jumping in only when I think her HP is getting a bit too low. Departing the cell and scurrying down the corridor, we take down a few more alien scum until coming to this cell here. This is Sally, and while Soma may be all-powerful and annoying, Sally is all-knowing and slightly less annoying. Sally is a pre-war relic, probably around 200 or so years old, being kept permanently around the age of 10 or so from selective stasis. I really don't know how she hasn't aged even slightly since arriving here. She seems to be out of the stasis chambers, which will become far more prominent and be explained in just a few moments, more often than she isn't. Her describing to us hours upon hours of exploring this apparently massive ship. Speaking of the ship, the DLC's first issue quickly becomes recognizable at this point. To access our next objective and free a few more of our fellow human captives, we have to cross through the Steamworks, an unexplained and ultimately odd addition to this map. Upon our arrival, I find Soma has left our party, replaced with Sally who, in a stroke of sheer responsibility, to whom we offer a plasma grenade which we found minutes earlier. The Grove accepts and scurries off into the ventilation system, promising to cause a distraction amongst the alien workers, allowing me to better get the jump on them while passing through. While unknown to us at this point, the ship as a whole is run off of several concurrently operational reactor cores. Assuming this is nuclear power, the inclusion of steam exhaust is completely acceptable from a logical standpoint. However, the placement and sheer scale of this local cell is in direct conflict with the logic of how the ship is actually presented. Firstly, the layout is just odd. It may seem as if it's a nitpick, but having living experiments being held so close to such an instrumental part of the ship's anatomy, while also having it exist between another holding facility, is just bad oversight. It feels like this area, which seems impossibly small for the sheer energy output the ship is likely giving off, comes out as nothing more than filler. Reused vault assets, at least from what I observe, appear to be the dominant aesthetic in this cell. Cool, but hopelessly contained and inappropriately scaled steam assets every so often pop up in our faces as well. This is also where we find a bit of diversity amongst Zeta's population. There seems to be at least 3 or maybe 4 main alien types wandering the ship, each serving a core function and technically being hostile, although for whatever reason you lose karma if you kill the non-combative alien workers that are randomly scattered from this section on. I'm not too sure why, as assuredly these would be the same aliens who both facilitated our capture and helped experiment upon us. It's not as if they're peaceful. They're going along with whatever vague, nondescript plan Todd dreamt up for these guys. I lay waste to them all the same as I would any other variant, and take the karma hit on the chin. I imagine my character would be pretty upset in this situation, and this is how he'd vent. I'm role-playing in Fallout 3, a feat once thought impossible. We traverse the steam works, coming out into what appears to be part holding facility, part experimental laboratory. Also, we really didn't get any payoff with the whole plasma grenade thing. Not even a cutaway. I don't know if I left the area too fast or something, but I'm just sort of down some ordnance now. Bethesda, you've done it again. Sorting everything out, we jaunt over to the holding area. Sally, or Susie, or Sue, or whatever, tells us these people have been here a long while. Some much longer than others, actually. Explaining that there may be some shock upon their coming to. But amongst this collection of people, there's an individual astronaut who, more so than the others, we need as a part of our party to complete a spacewalk in order to exist in an adjoining part of the ship. But let's just do it. Freeing the captives from their cryocells, we beeline over to the astronaut's pod, finding the once proud spaceman now deceased. Sally briefly mourns the death of her acquaintance, before quickly instructing us to loot the man's body and remove his suit, as now, for some reason, we find ourselves the most qualified to carry out an apparently dangerous and probably deadly spacewalk. Oh, and Soma's here too. Since she's also accessed her stolen inventory, she informs us that she'll be able to provide a few repairs for us here and there, but it will cost us. We try to talk her down from this, but since I'm still at a fairly low level, our speech is not nearly high enough to accomplish it, and she gives us a pretty dismissive response. Well, okay, we need team players around here. Getting that out of the way, let's quickly run down our small band of misfits. First, there's this guy. He's a veteran. Not just any veteran, though. He was involved in one of the last major operations of the war, serving as a combat medic and squad leader in Operation Anchorage. He's also terrified to be here, thinking, I guess with some reason behind it, that we ourselves are cooperating with the alien scourge. We aren't. At least I don't think so. That'd probably add a level of intrigue here, actually. We assure him of this fact, easing his mind a bit and extracting some info about how he was abducted from his post in the dead of night, mid-battle. The rest of his squad also somewhere in the ship's hull. We currently have 3 main objectives and 3 separate areas of the ship. Our medic friend here relevant in completing the first. He agrees to join our efforts, us promising him that we will in fact help him find, or at the very least recover, his squad mates. Moving down the line a bit, we have 2 other individuals here that just so happen to be lost in time. Us being introduced to perhaps the 2 oldest characters in the entire Fallout universe. So old that they actually each predate the Divergence. Firstly, we have by far the oldest, that being the samurai Toshira Kagu, who has been trapped aboard Zeta for going on around 500 years or more now. He doesn't speak any English whatsoever, though his confusion is evident through the tone of his voice and curt responses to our attempts at communication. We deem this a lost cause, and, at least for the time being, move on to our last relevant character, Paulson. Paulson is from the Wild West, and, perhaps even more than Toshiro, remains a mystery to us throughout the majority of the DLC. First, same as the others, we convince the man we are not with the Zetans, acquiring his trust to a degree. There is a speech check here, which I again have no hope of passing at my low level of 3 or 4, so unfortunately Paulson here remains a constant enigma, a shadow of a man, much like he is in the shoddy alien lighting. And just like that, we find ourselves going to work, infiltrating the cryo lab, which I was fairly certain we were already in, but whatever. Cryolab time. The lab, though disconnected from our current path, houses one of 3 essential generators that we must destroy if we seek to move between the ship's levels. It goes about as well as you can imagine, the aliens at this point often presenting themselves as little more than moving targets and often being one-tapped by their own technology. Despite me being a glass cannon with my low level and everything, I find most of the combat to be sort of repetitive and the enemy placement, usually down to the number, rather predictable. Now, this is Fallout 3. Repetitive combat is sort of just what you're going to get sometimes. It was made in 2008, but enemy spawn and placement, that's sort of always been what's great about this game. You can just be standing around or lurking in the outskirts and suddenly a gang of super mutants will run up on you. Where did they come from? Doesn't matter. They're everywhere anyway. Point is that the enemy placement throughout this section, and even the wider DLC at large, is not a matter of developer talent or ability. It's a matter of laziness. Bethesda leaning on the, even at this point in Fallout's history, sort of played out alien concept to carry it through. Anyway, despite some mumbling and bumbling, we find ourselves in the facility's primary laboratory. Inside, visible through wide observational windows, we view the Zetans committing atrocious experiments on a subsection of the medic squad. This causes our new companion to go absolutely bananas, shooting at the window and control panels, eventually forcing his way into the lab and gunning down the monsters where they stand. Managing his grief and gaining a bit of resolve from the horrific treatment of his platoon, the medic instructs us that several more of his men could be alive beyond the lab's storage, and urges us to help recover them. We rush over to the back analogs of the facility, sure enough finding 2 or 3 recoverable squad mates. Well, kind of recoverable. The medic, checking the vitals of his contemporaries, informs us that these men are functionally dead. Their bodies, despite storage within this cryostasis, have suffered significant abuse over the last 200-odd years, leading to their inevitable deaths if they are released. This presents a moral conundrum for our new friend, him being unsure of if he should leave the men to their fates, essentially vegetables kept within an endless frozen sleep, or if he should free them now, allowing them warrior deaths, despite the further pain that it may inflict. He leaves it up to us to ultimately decide. Kind of easy for me, honestly. I want their armor, and I'm pretty sick of my ankles getting all bit up by these green guys. So I say let him out. The medic obliges, ensuring his men will be in fighting condition just long enough to help us cut a path to the core, dying the warrior deaths they assumedly always wanted, and allowing me a decent chance at some unique loot. Yeah boy. The core's destruction isn't exactly anything complicated. Just push these 3 buttons here, back up just a little, and that's 1 out of 3. Naturally, the Zetans aren't too happy with our progress, sending a small and equally ineffective squad of their men to thwart us. We kind of just run past them and let the now rejuvenated medic take over the offensive role. Outside of the now wrecked cryolab, we find that our group has managed to actually take one of the Zetan crew members hostage, him likely being involved in the last attack raid. The alien, clearly distressed, begs our group in a language we can't understand, but I'm sure that this is going to be probably a great opportunity for us to negotiate. We could use him as a pawn and... Oh, Paulson just blew his head smooth off. Alright then. Why? This seemed like a pretty good opportunity to maybe learn a thing or two about the inner workings of the ship, or maybe bypass destroying the 2 other generators while the team just kind of sits around like bait. But whatever. Oh, and someone's back too. It's a miracle. And the samurai is missing. I'm sure he can handle himself. Since this next subsection of the ship is going to require a light hand, and since I guess someone can just quite literally fix absolutely anything in the entire galaxy, we ask our former cellmate to tag along with us. She agrees, thankfully not attempting to charge me this time for her troubles, and we set off to do essentially the same thing over again. Except, this time, there are mad robots and assorted mechanical threats of that nature. Hence, why we need a handyman. I'll concede points where I can to the DLC, as my main objective when recording this was just to have fun, and say that the robotics section was probably the most lively for me. Visual storytelling is fairly strong throughout this period of game's progression, and it's obvious while the robots that attack our party appear autonomous, they are likely the main way in which these aliens commit warfare in general. The Zetans, advanced beyond the need to use their primary biological functions, have designed these death machines in order to conquer and destroy their opponents for them. Drone warfare of sorts. This happens to likely be the shortest section. I'm not sure if that's a result of how I played it or because I was managing to have a bit of fun finally, but I found that Soma and I, blowing our way through the manufacturing line with a homemade explosive, had cleared most of this section with ease. There are also a few more alien workers down here. I leave them unscathed, as my wrath has definitely subsided at this point. We activate the reactor core, skedaddle, and come out of robotics with only one essential task left in this part of the ship. Now, for this next part, I think Paulson, if we had passed our speech check with him earlier, which we had not, would have come with us. But since we are such a lowly level, and I'm sort of sick of babysitting these guys, we're going to have to just head off into the last section on our own. Entering the hangar bay, we begin what felt like the longest section of the DLC. Despite it only probably lasting maybe 20 minutes, I found this area made little to no impression on me whatsoever, and just sort of felt like a slog. Aside from this cool set piece here, which actually reminded me for the first time in an hour that we were on a spaceship, I hardly remember anything about it at all. Usually I just write these from memory, the little inconsistencies coming out as humorous, at least to me. These aren't really meant to be strict lore videos after all, but I had to actually check my footage in order to pull anything out of this particular task, and I still came up sort of short. It's just sort of the same as it ever was. The aliens have gotten a bit rougher, mostly soldiers in helmets and long rifles called disintegrators are appearing now. The Zetans clearly stressed out at this point about our progress. We do the same thing. We activate the core, it blows up, the ship really is starting to rattle now, and we leave. Simple as. Arriving back and meeting up with our squad, we observe that the samurai is still absent. I have no idea where he went. I'm just sort of checked out right now. Let's go walk in outer space or whatever. We equip the spacesuit, chat with Sally for a moment. She's the only semi-interesting character right now. The rest not too conversational anyway, especially not after running for their initial dialogue, and head to the pod bay doors. Getting outside, we find the cell to be pretty vast. I kind of assumed everything would just sort of be a compressed JPEG, but nah. Earth looks pretty cool from here. I can't tell where I'm looking though. There's a pretty significant layer of smog covering the majority of our home planet's atmosphere. I wonder why. We have to run around out here for a little bit, pushing in these panels in order to manipulate the hatch to the ship's upper decks. Not too dissimilar from what we've been doing for the last hour and a half. Not too dissimilar at all. I should have taken the suit off or messed around a little bit out here, seeing what I could have gotten away with or gotten the game to do. But honestly, I just wanted to get back inside. We do so after playing Electrical Engineer Simulator for a while, getting inside and completing the Among the Stars questline, which I just like the name of. Despite my criticisms of this particular showing, Fallout in space has always been a concept that should make sense. However, despite the best efforts of Bethesda, and even modders, looking at you Frontier developers, it's never exactly worked in reality. Mothership Zeta is really no exception at all. Anyway, we bring our friends over via this transporter doohickey. They'd pull up and pretty much just tell us to run along to our next task, which we're more than happy to try until old Big Head here shows up. Now, I'm pretty sure this is from a sister ship of Zeta's, the captain of this vessel coordinating and perhaps coming to relieve the one we currently inhabit. Meaning, unless we want to learn a whole lot more about these guys, we need to get this done fast. The captain of this adjoining ship is rather surprised to see us. At least, I think he is. Again, can't understand a word here. This is where I think our alien prisoner from earlier may have come in handy, but what do I know? It's not like everyone has just been sitting around letting me do everything this entire time. After a start warning, I could at least gather that much. The alien captain blinks off, presumably putting his ship in full throttle and coming straight for us. First up on our hero agenda, we gotta destroy another core. Okay, great. Whatever, my head is starting to hurt. At least this time, and now with a bit of suspense from the added Zetan threat, we're destroying something pretty cool. That being an orbital death ray pointed directly at Earth. On our way up, we also encounter these fellas. They're pretty squishy too. Doesn't really make up for how unsettling they look, though. These guys, referred to as abominations, appear to have once been human. This, among other horrors, is apparently the fate of any Earth-dwelling captive the aliens managed to drag up to their ship. It looks like this is actually an accidental breach, too, likely caused by our reactor antics, rather than an intentional play by the aliens to slow us down. The denizens of the ship fighting and running from the abominations as they appear out of, kind of nowhere. Sad. Sort of wasted potential. And that depresses me. You know what doesn't depress me, though? Liquefying random subcontinents with technology that I couldn't even possibly begin to understand. Yeah, before disabling the ray, we test the weapon out just a little bit, firing it a couple times and even trying to get a better read on where exactly the laser beam is, well, lasering. If anyone knows of the specific region that it is hitting, and there's lore repercussions as a result, let me know in the comments. I couldn't really find anything about it online. However, all good things must come to an end, and with a heavy heart, we take the orbital cannon offline and proceed with the rest of our objective. We will be home in no time. Through some hijinks, and by that I mean I just sort of kept doing what I'd been doing for 2 hours, but with little to no brain power. I arrive on the bridge. Absolutely BTFO the captain. I get this cool sidearm and unique weapon, and oh, they're here already. This is where I kind of thought it was all for naught. None of the corresponding controls for the ship making much sense to me, as the Zetans fully accept the loss of their craft and begin firing upon us. Which, I don't know, seems a bit much for only 5 humans. But despite my complete and utter confusion, and with Toshiro actually now reappearing to man a currently inoperable weapon, we somehow, someway, pull through and just straight up blow the other ship to pieces. I feel nothing. Weren't there more alien workers on that ship too? Shouldn't I be losing karma for that? Okay, whatever. Toshiro has nothing to say for himself. I don't even know why he came back. Someone still wants to charge us for repairs. Sally isn't actually a demigod, it turns out. And Paulson doesn't even seem excited. In fact, aside from Soma and ourselves, I'm pretty sure everyone is just going to stick aboard the ship. This makes sense for Sally and the medic. The man actually seeming to have an arc compared to the other characters. And they're also both from pretty much the same time period. Back to the Capital Wasteland it is, and guess that's the end of Mothership Zeta. Pretty uneventful, I know. Fun to make the video for? Yeah, and I hope it was fun for you to watch, too. I just got over being sick. I think I might be sick again, though. It doesn't matter. It was also like negative 17 here for a few days, so I wasn't exactly focused on working on YouTube. Just surviving and sleeping. I was like some sort of wild animal. So I'm pretty happy to have this one in the can, finally. If you enjoyed it, check out my last video. It was New Vegas focused and centered around the Old World Blues DLC. And before that was Dead Money. I plan to return to those soon, actually. Let me know if you want more FO3 or just go on to Honest Hearts next. Okay, check out the shorts too. Yep. Thank you. Yep, goodbye.